Hello! Today we're going to be talking about chess basics. We'll be setting up the chessboard and going over the functions of each of the pieces. As you can see, black is on this side, white is on this side, and the white space goes in the bottom right corner for each player. As you can see, I have the pawns set up there on the second row for each player. They look like this, and the pawns, when they're in this second row, they can move forward 2. After that, they have to move forward 1. You can also move it forward 1 from the second row. You just won't be able to do the 2 after that. If a piece is in front of the pawn, it won't be able to move forward. So this can be used as a good blocking tool. If a piece is diagonal to the pawn will be able to capture the piece, as long as it's the other players. If the spaces are open, then 2 turns later, the pawn could make it all the way to the end here, and then it could be promoted to a rook, a knight, a bishop, or a queen. So we put our pawns back, and then we'll talk about the rook. The rook looks like this, and it goes in each of the corners. The rook is able to move horizontally and vertically as long as nothing's blocking it. So right now the pawn is blocking it. If we move the pawn up though, then the rook would be set up to move and have more flexibility. So if the rook was here, let's just pretend, it would be able to capture this pawn by going straight forward. Although in this case that would be dangerous, because then this rook would be able to capture the rook, and then you would lose your rook. You always got to be thinking a couple moves ahead in chess. Alright, next is our knight. Knights go next to the rooks, and they are the only piece that can jump over pieces. So the knight always moves in an L shape, so it's 1, 2, 3. So 3 spaces and 1 to the side. It can move 3 spaces and 1 to the side the other way. It can move the other direction completely. As long as it's making that L shape when it moves, then it's good to go. So the knight, if the other player's piece is in a spot in this L shape, then the knight can capture that piece. But if it's one of their own, then it's going to be blocked from that space. Okay, next we'll talk about our bishops. Bishops go next to the knights, and they can move diagonally. So this bishop, as long as there's nothing stopping it, like this pawn would stop it, it can move as many spaces forward or behind as it would like. So it could capture this pawn, or it could capture this pawn from the direction that it's in. Okay, next is the queen. The queen always goes on her color. The queen is the second most powerful piece to the king, because the queen is able to move in every direction. So it can go horizontally, it can go vertically, it can go diagonally, it can go diagonally the other way. The only thing the queen can't do is this knight shape, the L shape. It doesn't do that. It only moves in one direction, but it can move in any direction, and it can move as many spaces as needed. So the queen can move down and capture the pawn. It can move forward, capture the knight. It can move sideways, capture the bishop. Move back, capture the pawn. Obviously this would take place in many different moves, not all at once, but it has a lot of flexibility in the direction that the queen can move. So we put our pawn back, we put our knight back, put our bishop back, and put the other pawn back. Okay, and then the most important piece is the king. The king is what you need to protect, because if you lose the king, you lose the game. Which is why the king is in the middle, surrounded by all of the other players, or all of the other pieces, so that it has the most protection. The king can't move very much. It can move in any direction, but it can only move one space at a time. The only exception for this is if you're castling. Castling means that if these pieces are gone, you have your king and your rook. The rook can move forward and the king can go around it just like that. Sometimes this is useful to protect the king, but it's not always necessary. There you have it. That is the chessboard and function of the pieces. The Mercer County Library System has lots of chess related books, so if you'd like to brush up on your strategy and find out different ways of capturing the king, we have lots of great resources to help you with that. We also have lots of other YouTube videos. If you found this one enjoyable, we have plenty more to share with you. And thank you for joining us today, and keep being creative.